I do want to bring in Washington, D.C. Democratic Congresswoman Jayapal for more. Thank you so much for being here with me. And you sat down right away and you said, I do want to talk about the historic nature of this evening. And then you just listened to that interview. Yes. And I mean, it is in the air. It is something that everybody wants to witness and be a part of tonight.
That's exactly right. I mean, she is a groundbreaking candidate in every way, incredibly qualified. She's been a part of the Biden-Harris administration, so has gotten remarkable things done that I think 4 years ago we didn't think were possible. But also, there are so many people who can see themselves in her. If you're middle class, you can see yourself in Kamala Harris. If you worked in a McDonald's, you can see yourself in Kamala Harris. If you are South Asian American like I am, you can see yourself. If you're a woman, you can see yourself. And the same thing with Governor Walz. Here's a guy who comes from a rural red district, is a coach, cares about people, cares about his neighbors, implemented some of the most progressive, fantastic policies in the state of Minnesota as governor. And I think that is a lot of what we are going to hear tonight, is the ability for people to see themselves in this ticket and to know and trust that they will fight forward for us. They will fight for our freedoms. They will fight for the opportunity for everyone to be able to do what they're doing. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, talking about it right now.
You're clearly excited. Look, if we know anything about the vice president, we've heard her described as cool, calm, and collected, and also as prepared.
That's right.
What are some of the things you think she might be saying on this stage here tonight?
Well, I think she is going to talk about, obviously, her background. People need to get to know her, so I think she's going to lay some of that out. How did she get to where she is? Why do people think, why should people think that she's qualified? I think she will talk about some of the historic accomplishments of the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration, including cutting the cost of prescription drugs, capping insulin, those things. And I think that she will talk about her vision forward, because we know that the cost of housing is too high. We know that people are struggling with childcare. We know that people need more investments in taking on climate change, gun reform. These are things that she has already spoken about, but I think she'll weave them together along with abortion rights, codifying voting rights, structural changes that allow for people to know that our freedoms are protected, guaranteed, and that we can pass them on.
And freedom and protecting it is, of course, part of the theme here tonight. And, we talk a lot about the issues that are polling really well for voters. And former President Donald Trump is leading the polls in some of the top issues. But when I have conversations here, I think that there's some other issues that aren't showing up in the polling that are of top concern for the voters, especially gun rights and gun control. When you talk to young voters, we know that Gabby Giffords is going to be on stage tonight. That's a story that's always had a soft spot for me. I was a young reporter in Tucson when that happened, and I followed her story. Mark Kelly also will be on stage.
I think Maxwell Frost might be on stage too, who came up through, he's our youngest member of Congress from Florida, and came up through the gun reform movement. And so I think you will absolutely hear about that, because, and you heard about it from Tim Walz as well on the campaign trail. But here's somebody, best shot, I think he said this last night.
He did.
Best shot, in the Congress. Gun owner, believes in the Second Amendment, and believes our kids have to be kept safe. And so I think that will certainly be an issue you'll hear about. I also think that she will be able to talk about just the ability for people to earn a decent wage. I think nowhere in the country is the minimum wage highest and high enough. And who helps us get their unions? I think we'll hear about workplace democracy. I think we'll hear about a number of things. It may not be a central, theme for the whole thing, but it's all part of what does it take to actually take care of our families? What does it take to be able to put food on the table, have a roof over your head, and fight for your rights? And I think that's the case she'll lay out.
I also want to ask you noted that you really supported Governor Walz's progressive policies. You are, of course, the chair of the Progressive Caucus. And we have seen the protests outside. We have watched that happen. And we have watched the calls for a ceasefire and a hostage release. And we know that there's some uncommitted delegates that were having a sit-in because they would really like to see a Palestinian-American have the opportunity to to take the stage here tonight.
Yeah.
I'm really curious as to your thoughts on that. I mean, should they have that opportunity? I know that you had a chance to speak with some of those folks. They're some of your constituents.
Some of them are my constituents. I have been speaking to them. I've been speaking to the campaign as well. Look, I think it was so powerful last night when John and Rachel were on stage talking about Hirsch and the need to get Hirsch back, to get all of the hostages back. I think our hearts all broke, and America was united around their pain and suffering and the need to get the hostages back. I think the same thing would happen if we put a Palestinian-American on the stage tonight to talk about how they've lost hundreds of people, dozens of family members in many cases in Gaza, in the killings in Gaza. And I think that is the unity of pain and grief and commitment to resolving this issue that, frankly, we need. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have shown us what it means to feel seen. And I think on this issue, we need to make sure our Palestinian-American friends also can be seen and can be heard. And so I do wish that we were having a Palestinian-American speaker on stage, because I actually think Kamala Harris's candidacy gave us a new opening on this issue and gave us a new opportunity to kind of continue to build the bridges and get all of these voters who are uncommitted because they have very serious concerns about U.S. policy
and that
back into
uncommitted
the fold.
vote was big, and especially in places like Michigan.
Absolutely.
Also.
And don't forget 2016, Michigan, we only won by 11,000 votes. And there were 200,000 people that voted down ballot but didn't vote top of the ticket. So we have to make sure that that does not happen again in Michigan and in many states. I mean, Georgia is this is one of the top issues for the black community, is a ceasefire and ending the killing in Gaza and getting humanitarian aid in and making sure that we are implementing our domestic policy, our domestic laws, in not continuing to use our funding to kill people in Gaza. So I think these are really important issues. We need to keep working on this. We had been making some progress. I hope we don't take too much of a step back with the sense that some have in the uncommitted movement that their voices were excluded here. I hope the vice president, I believe she's going to say something about this. I don't know exactly what that'll be, but I hope she does find a way to speak to the pain and suffering of Palestinian Americans, Muslim Americans across this country who have lost so many people, just as we felt the grief and the pain from hostage families last night on stage.
But you do think it was a mistake to not invite a Palestinian American?
I think it was an opportunity missed, a giant opportunity missed. And but listen, there is, in my mind, it is clear, and I've said this over and over again, perfection is not on the ballot, but real progress is. And we don't have to agree 100% with any candidate, but we do have to know that we can continue to organize for progress under that candidate. And my belief is that under Donald Trump, there is no progress possible. And at the same time, I think under Kamala Harris, we can continue that work to get to just humane policy in the Middle East and to protect Israeli lives, Palestinian lives. They all matter, and they are equally worthwhile, and we need to be able to continue to show that.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm so happy that you were able to join us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.